everyone. In this video you will see the development of tongue in detail. As we all know, tongue develops in relation to the pharyngeal arches in the floor of the developing mouth. So, the development of the tongue starts by the 4th week of intrauterine life. 4th week of intrauterine life. For the development of the tongue, we know there are several pharyngeal arches. The pharyngeal arches are the ones responsible for the development of the tongue. The first, second, third and the fourth pharyngeal arches are responsible for the development of tongue. Now, this is a cut section of the pharyngeal arches. When we take the pharyngeal arch and when we view it from inside, it would appear as if drawn in this diagram. So, this is the first pharyngeal arch, this is the second pharyngeal arch, this is the third, fourth, and by this 4th week the 5th arch disappears. So, this is the 6th pharyngeal arches. These are the pharyngeal arches that takes place that helps for the development of our tongue. So, how does the development of tongue takes place from this pharyngeal arches? Let's take the first pharyngeal arches. This two first pharyngeal arches, they grows medially and fuses in the midline. This fusion gives rise to swelling. The first arch forms two swellings in the midline. This first one is known as lingual swelling. There are two lingual swelling formed by the growth of first pharyngeal arch, that is known as lingual swelling, and there is one more swelling in relation to the first and second pharyngeal arch below the lingual swelling. This is known as tuberculum impar. Tuberculum impar. And behind the tuberculum impar, you could see a tiny opening. This tiny opening is the foramen cecum. Foramen cecum. We will study the foramen cecum in detail in the thyroid section, because from here there is a downward growth of tissue, that is the thyroglossal duct, from which further development of the thyroid takes place. Now, that's all about the first pharyngeal arch. First pharyngeal arch gives us the lingual swelling, tuberculum impar, and we could also see the foramen cecum in the first pharyngeal arch. Now moving on to the rest of the pharyngeal arches, we have second, third and fourth pharyngeal arches. The mesoderm of the second, third and fourth pharyngeal arches will grow and they fuses in the midline and give rise to a single swelling. Here the first pharyngeal arch gave rise to two swellings, lingual swelling and tuberculum impar, while the second, third and fourth, the mesoderm of these three pharyngeal arches, they grow and fuses and form a single swelling, and that single swelling is known as hypobronchial eminence. Hypobronchial eminence. We could divide the hypobronchial eminence into two parts, the cranial part as well as the caudal part. This is the cranial part. As we all know, the cranial part is referred to the one which is situated near to the head, and the caudal part means the part which is situated closer to the tail region. So this would be the cranial part and this is the caudal part. The cranial part is known as copula. The cranial part of the hypobronchial eminence is known as copula. So, from the diagram, it is clear that the cranial part is constituted by the second and third pharyngeal arch, while the caudal part is from the fourth pharyngeal arch. So, this is the diagram of the pharyngeal arches, and from these swellings, that is from the lingual swelling, tuberculum impar, and from the hypobronchial eminence, the further development of tongue takes place. So let us see how this takes place.